And welcome back to the Correspondents on Voice of America. I'm Mil Arcega in Washington. Well, if you've been watching, the games of the 31st Olympiad have definitely not disappointed. Sports fans around the world have been rewarded with a lot of drama, a lot of excitement in just the first week of Rio 2016. The action this week was focused on gymnastics and swimming events, but let's not forget there was also beach volleyball on Ipanema. But there's so much more still to come. And joining me now to recap some of the week's highlights and give us some of the flavor of these games, we've got on Skype from Rio, VOA's Parke Brewer, one of several VOA reporters covering the games for us in Rio. And joining me right here in Washington, our very own sports guru, Sonny Young, host of VOA's Sunny Side of Sports. Welcome, gents. I'm so glad both of you could join us. But Parke, I'm going to get to you because you've got that nice location behind you. Before we get started on what it's like to cover these Rio games, I just wanted to talk to you briefly about security. Because last week, one of our VOA reporters was mugged, as you know. And this week, one of your first reports out of there was an attack on one of the media buses that takes reporters from one venue to another. What can you tell us about that? What happened?
Well, yes, it was a bus traveling from Diodoro, which is actually kind of a high crime area. It was traveling along one of the brand new highways that opened up. And there were 12 members of the media on that bus returning from a women's basketball game back to the main press center. And in fact, at a news conference earlier this week, one of the women who were on that bus, who covers basketball, was visibly shaken and questioned the IOC about the incident and how it was handled. But clearly, it was very disturbing for her and all the people who heard the eyewitness accounts of this. She was her name was Lee Michelson, and she's a former U.S. Air Force captain. And she said she knows what the sounds of gunshot is. And the IOC was saying they thought it was rocks that hit these bus windows, but she was absolutely certain it was bullets. So a very scary event here. And actually, the Rio organizers have not yet released the forensic details. They were going to do an investigation, but we haven't heard exactly what that might be yet. But they said, the security has been ramped up since then, and it was a very disturbing incident.
But Parke, how does that make you feel as a reporter? I mean, do you feel less safe as a result of what happened there?
Well, a little bit, yes. And I spoke to a lot of reporters after that, and it makes them put a little on edge. They're being a little more aware. We did see security ramped up at the main presser where that bus was headed back to. Right. So it does make you a little bit on edge because you're traveling all around to different places, to the different venues. You want to know you're secure.
Yeah. Now, Sonny, aside from those security issues and some of the health and safety concerns, last week you told me that a lot of those issues are probably going to sort of go by the wayside as soon as these contests begin. And sure enough, you're absolutely right. I mean, it was quite a spectacular first week, especially for the U.S. women's gymnastics team.
Women's gymnastics, I want to give a couple of shout outs. Simone Biles,
yes,
African American. She won the all-around women's gymnastics gold medal. Another African American named Simone Manuel. She wins gold. First African American to win gold for Team USA in the 100-meter freestyle. The American swimmers have dominated the pool in Rio Mill. Michael Phelps, you got to give a shout out for Phelps. Absolutely. Arguably the greatest Olympian of all time. Let's count him up. 4 gold in Rio, 22 golds overall in his career, 26 medals overall. Let me put that in historical perspective for you, Mil. The closest Olympians to Phelps in terms of career gold medals have 9 each. So Phelps is 13 gold medals ahead of them.
We shouldn't feel bad for Ryan Lochte, who's only got 12 gold medals.
Phelps has just been spectacular. Katie Ledecky.
Yes, let's not forget Katie Ledecky. My goodness, what a strong swimmer.
Yeah, and interestingly, she and Phelps have local connections. Phelps from Baltimore, Maryland. Ledecky just outside of Washington in Bethesda, Maryland. So, yeah, they're some of the big names. The gymnastics team has also really performed well in Rio, Mil.
Yeah, no, it's been absolutely stunning just watching it's must-watch TV. I couldn't take my eyes off it. But Parke, I assume that you're planning on taking in some of the high-profile events while you're there. But I'm curious, what are the logistics like for you getting, say, from one venue to another?
Well, it's a little bit difficult if you're trying to get to those venues that are not next to the main press center in the Olympic Park. The main press center and the International Broadcast Center are located right at the Olympic Park. So it's easy to get a lot of the events there, like the swimming, like judo, like wrestling. But some of the farther out venues like women's basketball, equestrian, sailing, those are a little bit farther. In fact, my colleague from the Portuguese service at VOA yesterday had gone downtown to Copacabana Beach, which is about a good hour and a half where I'm speaking to you here. And it took him a little over 3 hours last evening, kind of during the rush hour, to get back here. He was so exhausted, so frustrated because of the terrible traffic in downtown Rio. So it's a big challenge, and you have to allow a lot of extra time to get to these venues if you're going to cover a sporting event.
I'll ask you a little bit later about what your accommodations are like, but Sonny, I want to get you in here. Another great moment, I don't know if you can talk about this. One of the great moments as well was that finger wag with Lily King versus Yulia Efimova. Now, I'm just wondering, though, your thoughts on this. Is Yulia Efimova getting sort of a bad rap here? Because after all, she was suspended, but not for steroids. It was for common over-the-counter drugs.
Yeah, there is some thought that maybe King was out of line, lack of sportsmanship when she, wagged the finger at her.
I mean, her point was, we can do this without drugs.
Right. But there's a lot of controversy overall, Mil, about whether the Russians should have even been allowed to participate in Rio. Very much a last-minute decision. You had 270 Russians coming in. And so they didn't have a lot of controls in Rio about, about just this type of scenario where you have a Russian athlete going up against the gold medal winner. So, and then one of the news stories out of Rio, they banned the Russian Paralympic team from Rio. The Paralympics, of course, take place after the Olympics. Was that fair? Were these disabled athletes from Russia being penalized for these healthy Russian athletes who tested positive for doping? So yeah, lots of controversial stories.
So in just the first week, a lot of excitement, still a lot of controversy, obviously. But what can we expect next week?
I got my eyes on the lightning bolt. Jamaican sensation Usain Bolt. He says he's going after 3 more gold medals in Rio, Mil. The 100 meters, the 200 meters, and the 4x100 meter team relay. Can he do it? He's not been really doing much leading up to Rio. He pulled a hamstring about a month ago, so question marks about whether he can win 3 gold medals.
Are there any Americans who might sort of challenge him?
The Gatlin gun, Justin Gatlin, the 2004 Olympic champion. Some say he could beat Bolt, but if Bolt's healthy, I don't see anybody out racing him.
Okay, well, we're looking forward to that. But just a quick question to you, Parke. What's life like been in a media village? And are you having a good time? Are you enjoying yourself?
Well, a little bit. Like I said, we have challenges here. I have to tell you, though, this morning it was very interesting. It was a late night last night at the pool, a lot of events going on. And it was very subdued around the breakfast dining room. It was the quietest I've seen since I've been here. So I think some of these journalists are wearing down after a week of traveling all over the city.
We'll get back to you next week. Thank you, Parke and Sonny. We're going to take another break now, but when we come back, we take you to a different arena, this time into the U.S. political ring and the increasingly unconventional race for the White House. And just a reminder, we want to hear from you. Share your thoughts, questions, and comments on our Facebook page. The address is VOA The Correspondents. We'll be right back.